So, as Felipe mentioned in the title, the building a career in Europe. So I know Felipe from the time of my PhD in Brazil, and I must say that it was a very happy period of learning in our group in São Paulo. But the beginning of my career, I must say that it started way before, and I decided to share this picture here when I was very young. So this is my dad, and my father was he was working in the pharmaceutical industry. So I must say that he influenced a lot. I would say my professional choice in the future. So in the very beginning of my career, I studied in different types of colleges. I must say that very good colleges, and also during some political crisis in Brazil, I studied in very, I would say, challenging and difficult schools. But that didn't impair me or didn't stop my passion for studying and pursuing in the future a scientific career. So I wanted to be many things in my life. I wanted to be even Superman. I wanted to pilot an aircraft, or to be an engineer, or even playing piano. But it was actually some, I would say, correlations in family, that I had like problems in cancer in family. And also in the time that I was very entertained by shows about medicine, that I decided to go to the medical school. So by influencing the experience of my father in the pharmaceutical industry and health problems in family, and also my natural passion for medical science, in 2000, after completing my school, I started studying to pass in university to perform medical sciences. In Brazil, we only have like a few universities that I would say that they're very good universities for medical studies, for medicine. But I couldn't afford a course for medicine at the time. And I would say that the most challenging and difficult universities to be approved are USP, UNESP, and UNIFESP, the Federal University of São Paulo. They're extremely good universities. So I was trying, like, the exam is on in the end of the year, and I've studied the entire year for roughly 6 years. And this picture shows the competition that we have there is like we have almost 100 or 93 students per position for the medical school. Is completely difficult to get in. So I was like studying for 6 years, trying almost getting in my position in medical school, but I didn't manage. But it's very important to analyze during the 6 years trying to get into the medical school that I actually understood what I really wanted to do. I wanted to go to medical school, but actually I wanted to be a scientist. So in this period, I decided I would like to be a researcher. I would like to actually use science or medicine to discover new things, to solve problems in terms of disease. And from the very beginning, I was already thinking about cancer research, especially because of the cancer issues in family. So when I decided in 2006 that, well, if I want to be a scientist, maybe I don't need to be a medical doctor, but by some means, biological scientist. So I applied this year for a less competitive position in those universities as a biological scientist. And I was approved for the biological science course in one of these governmental institutions. So that was in 2006. In my career. So I studied during this period, and by most funny coincidence, in 2007, one of those medical schools that I wanted to get in to study medicine, to become an oncologist in the future, was actually the university where I started doing my internship in cancer research. So that was the time when I came to the lab where Felipe was working and studying there. He was actually doing his master in cancer research and immunology in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology. And I started doing my internship in that period. And by strange coincidence as well, we had some problems in my university, in the bachelor school, in the bachelor studies. We didn't have an immunology teacher. So I started doing like an internship in an immunology group, in the same group as Felipe was developing his master. but I didn't have any immunology background, and we didn't have an immunology teacher in our school. She was in an annual leave. So I started studying immunology on my own, especially by this book from Abbas. And I started enjoying that a lot. Like it was like a self-passion that I started developing for immunology. And then, so this was during my bachelor studies. And I started doing in this group some, I would say, internships related with developing of natural compounds that would attack cancer cells in vitro and in vivo. So basically, I was extracting and discovering new molecules that could have some anti-tumor potential. It wasn't an immunology-related project, but it was what I could do at the time in combination with the university that I was developing my bachelor studies, and in the university where I was doing this internship in a cancer research group. But at the same time, in the background, I was studying immunology, and I'm wondering when I will be able to start working with immunology in this team and studying the immune system. So afterwards, I started studying and preparing my career for the post-graduation studies. And actually, in order to get into the post-graduation in this university, you need to rank very high in immunology, and the main literature that they suggest is basic immunology by Abbas. So I was preparing again my studies and my skills in immunology for almost roughly not 9 months when I got approved in the post-graduation program in 2009. So that was a very happy circumstance for a direct Ph.D. that we had in Brazil in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology. And during this period, I awarded 2 scholarships to support my studies during 5 years. So that was back in 2010. So the kind of projects that I had in my PhD during this period was related with cancer pharmacology to develop anti-tumor peptides. And some of these peptides, they would have immunomodulatory activities. So they could kind of stimulate the adaptive immunity, but some of them would also work in the realm of innate immunity to activate a specific like a vaccination, or even to stimulate immune response against cancer. So I was also starting to work with immuno-oncology with these prototypes, these peptide prototype molecules in this period. So I must say that it was a very productive time of my career, where I had the privilege to study with Professor Luis Travassos. He is a great name in Brazil. Unfortunately, he passed away recently, but he formed very successful students that are now team leaders or professors across the world. He is one of the not only students, but friend from Professor Lloyd Old, considered to be one of the fathers of cancer immunotherapy today, as at the time that he was alive, the president of the Cancer Institute, Cancer Research Institute. And here we have to prove in one picture of Philip also having fun with some discoveries or some readings that we were having in our labs. So I would say that we were a very united group. We managed to publish considerably during this period, and I had four first author publication at the time, 26 collaborations, an international fellowship in the end of my PhD, and 2 travel awards. So this international fellowship actually gave me an opportunity to think, should I go to industry or should I develop my international fellowship abroad? So that was the main question, because a lot of students in Brazil, they wouldn't have an opportunity to strive forward an academic position after the PhD. It's very competitive, and that we don't have a lot of positions open there. And there's a call to industry. There's a huge call to industry. So many great talents, talented PhD students, they end up going to industry to strive in not only research, but also as a medical advisor or counselor. But I was still struggling because I had a great passion for teaching and also for research. I must say that in that period, I was invited to go to the industry. So Novartis advertised a few positions. Just for fun, I sent an application for as an MSL, medical scientific liaison. Many of you might know this position. They usually hire PhD researchers already with the PhD title, that they understand research, they understand the papers, they can communicate science properly. So I remember very well, I was in an interview with the HR manager, and they were keen to hire me to start training the oncology group. But when I was very honest, and I mentioned about the opportunity to go abroad and develop my skills as a postdoc. And I remember that the HR manager, she closed the door that we were having the interview. She removed her stamp as an HR agent from Novartis. And she said, I will be very honest with you. If you start working here in the industry, no doubt, you will have a lot of security, you will earn a good salary, but that's that. You will kind of have a very big gap in your academic career. It's difficult to go back. And here, depending on how you're going to, or how your personality is going to fit, it might be the case that you can grow here, but usually if you really have an academic call, you will stay like as an MSL, kind of for good, which is good. The salary is good and there's a lot of background support, financial support. But I'm not anymore an HR manager talking to you, but I will advise you to think, if you have the opportunity to go abroad and develop your career without a gap, because you can grow in your career. And if you once want to go to industry, you can get a better position. So think about these opportunities. Not everyone that has a scholarship for that. So as she said, when I came back home, I received the message saying that if I would want the position, it would be available for me. But I resigned. I decided to take the scholarship opportunity and go abroad. And I had actually contact already. I had an open door in Liverpool, in the University of Liverpool. So I took this international mobility opportunity and I went to the city of the Beatles to study in the University of Liverpool and develop my postdoc in the Institute of Translational Medicine. That was in 2016. And with this one-year fellowship that I awarded from the Brazilian government. And I was working with a preclinical immuno-oncology research in the group of Professor Ainhoa Mielgo in the Mielgo lab. So the Mielgo lab was, I would say, a young career lab, but very rich in terms of funding. So this Ainhoa Mielgo, she was a Wellcome Trust Fellow, also a fellow from the Royal Society. She had funding from CR UK and the Medical Research Council. So during this period that I was in Liverpool, I really wanted to develop my career there. And I decided that, well, why not I start applying for funding here, right? So I have like my publications, I have international mobility, I might be competitive to apply for these fundings, and I might establish myself here as a young career fellow at some point. So in 2017, I was already advanced in my postdoc research in Ainhoa's Mielgo group, and I started applying for these grants, and they're very competitive there. In the time that Brexit was pumping out, so there was a lot of uncertainty in terms of funding, and although I'm Brazilian, I also have a dual citizenship. I'm Portuguese, so I have the Portuguese citizenship. And in that time, I was living in the UK as a European citizen. So some of the funding or some of these grants, they were not anymore considered to be eligible for European citizens to apply to. But even though I was still like keen and trying my best to get these fundings, but unfortunately, I didn't award this fundings in her group. So after that, when we finished this, the mouse here. So when I finished my postdoc in Ainoa's Mialgo group, this is Ainoa, and this is the team that I was working at. I managed to publish my first postdoc paper, and I still contributed with the group with 3 more publications, and my research received an award, and I got another travel award to presenting my work. So that was during 1 year and a half for my postdoc development. I must say that I already started the postdoc in Brazil, so that was the conclusion of my first postdoc. And then when we published this paper, I decided, okay, I would like to continue working as an academic, but then the only thing that this group could offer me at the time was a 4-year postdoc scholarship, but to work with pancreatic cancer. So this group actually works with pancreatic cancer, but they studied the tumor microenvironment, and they were supporting my research in melanoma research. So all my publications, my tracking record, they were based in melanoma and in melanoma immuno-oncology. And if I would accept this grant, I would change it. It would be great for me to learn something new, but it would be more challenging to, in the future, apply with recent publications in the field of melanoma and for grants application. So, and they pointed out this possibility for me. So if it would start working with them for 4 years. So I decided to not take this position. And I already had like a contact in Liverpool that was working with melanoma. So if I would start in the group of this researcher working with melanoma, I could start applying again for grants and funding and continue my track record in melanoma research. That was when I started working with clinical translational research in the Liverpool Ocular Oncology Research Group, headed by Professor Sarah Coupland. So I was starting to work with translational research, and this is kind of like they were developing new state-of-the-art technologies in this group. And working with human samples as well. So my previous research was only with preclinical settings. And for the first time, I would be able to get in touch with human samples, doing like this kind of omics research for immunoprofiling through transcriptomic data or single cell high dimensional research with CyTOF. So it was a new thing for me. I was very excited, but again, funding was a problem. So when I start working in the Liverpool Ocular Oncology Research Group, I start applying for funding again with this new publication that I got from the year before. And it was actually a successful period because I got one award, one project grant that paid my salaries in the group from the Northwest Cancer Research Institute. I also managed to publish one article in this group with uveal melanoma, which is a very rare type of cancer, but extremely resistant to cancer immunotherapy with checkpoint inhibitors, and also contributed with 3 more papers and got 1 travel award from the Northwest Cancer Research because our work was the front page of the Journal of Pathology. So that was until 2019. I was still trying to apply for the grants to continue my career now with 2 new first author publication papers, more collaboration. And I was trying to, again, going through the Royal Society, Wellcome Trust, MRC, and CRUK. But unfortunately, I didn't get any of these grants. And most of the reason is because I didn't have sufficient, I would say, sufficient amount of major journals in my tracking record first. And second, because I was too junior yet in my postdoc career. So I wouldn't be able to establish a major grant like this, like 1 million from the Henry Dale Wellcome Trust, or 2.5 million from the UKRI, from the MRC, and Cancer Research Institute was already removing European applicants from the portfolio. So all these things together with the fact that the UK was completely leaving the European Union, and so in Britain, I didn't feel homey anymore. So I was feeling like extremely difficult to establish myself there as a researcher. And I still didn't want to go to industry. I was thinking that if I would go to industry, it would be to help myself in terms of support economically and financially, but would I be happy with that? I was very excited and encouraged with the fact that I could develop my group at some point, but I just didn't have the funding for that. So that was my main struggle at the time. And I tried actually. I applied for a few positions in the industry just to feel to test the waters, but I didn't receive any calls during this period of Brexit. And what to do then? Should I stay in the UK in the same group? No chance, because I can't receive any funding from this. And most of this funding, they were going to Nobel Prize groups in Cambridge, Oxford, London College. I was really feeling disencouraged. And where to go? Back home in Brazil? No chance as well. I was with an even worse scenario back home in Brazil. So the answer that came to me would be perhaps go to a more European country, and where the competition would be a bit more dissolved compared with Cambridge, Oxford, London College, that was concentrating most of the grants there. But where? So I started applying, or at least considering a list of the happiest countries in 2018. And I noticed that the Nordic countries, they were very well positioned in the rank of the happy and wealthy countries. And Finland was the first place, for the first time in this evaluation panel. So I started applying for positions related with cancer immuno-oncology research in some of these countries. And by very strange coincidence, Finland called me. So one of the applications that I sent to the University of Turku, still to be a postdoc researcher there in Medicity. So Turku is here. It's a lovely city in development. It was the former capital of Finland. Today is Helsinki. And I had a postdoc opportunity in Finland. And it was also promised to me that with my current career development, it wouldn't be difficult for me to start applying for funding and to potentially establish my own group for the first time. I was struggling, but how about the culture? How about the language as well? It's very like, I am living here in an English-speaking country in the UK. I'm going to Finland, and Finnish is regarded to be a completely difficult language. But then I knew that everyone in Finland speaks English as a second mother tongue, that since they are very young. So educational system in Finland is one of the best in the world, and everyone speaks like at least three languages here. Most of the people speak at least three languages. And okay, so it makes sense. I started visiting Finland, and I was really enchanted and captivated by the progressive society in Finland, by the opportunities that I would have in this city that was just growing, receiving a lot of funding from the government to develop in academics, in research, especially in cancer research. And I decided, okay, I think I would take this position. I will go there, I would change my life, and I would try to restart and see if I can establish myself. So this is the University of Turku, as you can see here. So it's a city that has all the different seasons in the year. And I must say that people might think Finland is a very, very cold place like Canada, for example, but it's not actually the case. So during 4 months, we have an intense winter, but it's like just 1 month, that very intense winter. All the rest is very tolerable, especially in the south of Finland, where Turku is located. And we have a beautiful summer here, and also during the fall and the spring. So it's a place that for me it made sense in terms of nature and weather. So there's also like a huge project to develop Turku in what we would think is the Silicon Valley of health sciences. So this is the Science Park project to develop Turku in a huge establishment of several labs for health sciences. It doesn't exist completely, but many of these buildings and facilities are already in place and it's only growing. So I have the privilege to be working in this hotspot that is in development here in Turku, in Western Finland. And I worked as a postdoc in the group of Professor Maja Holman, which is Holman Lab, received some funding to develop my own research from the Cancer Society of Finland. But at the time, I also had a first article, co-authorship as well. I supervised a master's student and I earned a research award. And during this 1 year already in Finland working this group, I started applying for funding. So from funding that would be European funding and also funding from Finland. So the individual fellowship for Maria Curie, it's a postdoc fellowship, very competitive across Europe. And because I was developing my research in Finland, I was eligible to apply. So it would pay my salaries for 2 years as a postdoc, a senior postdoc, and I would still have some funding for consumables in my research. And I applied for this. I also applied for the Collegium grant. Is a grant in Finland, it's a Finnish grant that would give me the status of a principal investigator and 300,000 euros to establish my group for the first time. And also the Finnish Cancer Foundation grant for 3 years that could give me a faculty position and also to establish my research group. And the Academy of Finland, the most challenging competitive grant here. It's an early career grant that it's also a Finnish grant. I would award 1 million euros and get the principal investigator status. I didn't get these 3 and I was very discouraged because the Academy of Finland was the most difficult. And I was, okay, so if I apply the similar project to this other less competitive grants, for sure I will not get the Academy of Finland. But that wasn't actually the case. I was really blessed and I got the Academy of Finland grant. And it was like a turnover in my life, like completely restored my motivation to finally establish my group and give me the opportunity to develop. So I must say that sometimes we are discouraged because one grant was rejected. We never know what's going to happen. Sometimes a major grant can be approved with the same project that was rejected in a local grant. And we just need to keep trying. It's sad to think that sometimes it's even a matter of statistics, but we need to trust and continue. And that's what happened. I earned this award and I start preparing my career now to be a PI, not a postdoc anymore. And it was like a big change because we start moving far away from the bench, and we really feel this transformation in the career. So we start like thinking about salaries, hiring people, organize lab space, logistics, additional funding because the money goes so quickly. So I established my group, and I gave a name for that, the Melanoma Immuno-Oncology Research Group, where I decided to incorporate here my recent, I would say, international network to continuously contribute and collaborate with my research and the new members that I would start hiring during this new stage of my career. So after 1 year of this fellowship, now when it's also true when people said, oh, you just need to get the first funding. And it happened with me. I was a bit skeptical, but if you get the first funding, it's easier to convince the trusts in further grants application. So when I got the Academy of Finland, the other trusts became like, they were relying on my applications as well. And I also improved my applications because you learn a lot when you go through a grant that you are really awarded. You learn how to write grants, and then you really see the improvement in further grants applications. So I received these additional fundings, like from their local fundings, the Cancer Research Foundation, the Suopa Aristot, and also the ERCO Foundation. 590,000 euros that helped me to hire personnel for my research. And also I took part of the Inflames flagship in the western part of Finland, which is, I would say, that's an initiative in immunology research that provides funding for 70% of the expenses that I have in my for the facilities that I used in my project, and some additional basic consumable fundings from the university and local grants for consumables. So now I really see that now it's 1.5 years as an early career, I really managed to organize and have solid funding to start my group. And my group is composed by 3 PhD students, 1 research assistant, and 1 bioinformatician to help processing this the material that the students are producing in this cancer research group. I decided to organize this presentation, not going too deep in terms of science, but mostly to show how I managed in different steps of my career with the international mobility until I reached this stage. Not enough to say all the struggles and the challenges and choices that I had, but I must say that persistence would be the word that I would choose to represent my career so far. It's very discouraging sometimes. It's really like the lack of funding and the deadlines approaching, the necessity for papers, and the need to get the funding to continue is never achieving. Because if you don't have that, it's difficult to get a permanent position in the university. It's very discouraging. I still don't have a permanent position in the university. I am like, I have now this 5 years funding and to provide research in cancer immunotherapy research. And if I manage to secure a major international grant that we call it's the European Research Council that some of you probably heard about, it would provide me a permanent position in the university. This is the kind of grants that European institutions or European universities, they really want to have PIs and researchers that could secure this kind of grant, because this is the starting grant, the 2.5 million. It's like for 5 years. And after that, there is the consolidator grant, which is like 4 million and so on. So researchers that really manage to secure this grant, they are more often the ones that are going to continue attracting this kind of funding for the university. So there's an agreement today with the university that I work at, that if I would secure this major funding with the results that I'm generating this stage of my early career position, I would be able to be tenured in the university here in Finland. And recently, I applied for a docentship. Docentship is something that is the next title that you would have after PhD. It's the title that would give you the status of associate professor. So as an associate professor, I awarded this given to the previous skills and that I had and experiences by teaching, and also with my tracking record, with the funding that I secured for this 5 years. So the university awarded me the title of associate professor. And now I have some load of teaching immunology in the department where I do my research. And I'm very happy and looking forward for new challenges in the future. Should I still think going to the industry? Maybe, perhaps in the future, but not today. I'm now excited to continue my work and to give training to the students, and also to pursue new endeavors for new discoveries in the fields of cancer immunology research. So I'm more than happy to take questions now if you would like to communicate. Thank you so much.
Nice talk, Carlos. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. I don't know if someone in the audience has some question, but I have some. Even like you think about like the background for someone from South America or Brazil, I could understand like move to Europe, but you couldn't say like even for a postdoc like that lives like in US or Canada, for example, should be a good move go to Europe. What do you can say about that?
If I would say Europe, 4 years ago, I would include the UK. And if you look, for example, I showed you the ERC grant foundation. Most of the funding from the ERC was also going to the UK. It's very difficult to compete with London, Oxford, Cambridge. I'm not saying that if you don't have good ideas, you wouldn't get it if you have major papers, but it's something else. It's about the structure and the tradition and the Nobel Prize in the institutes rather than just the tracking record. Not that other institutes in Europe wouldn't have that. We do have amazing institutes, the Karolinska Institute in Germany, also in Switzerland. They also secure funding, but most of the funding was concentrating there. So I would say that now that with the Brexit, there's like more funding going to European countries. And I at least is what I listen here from Sweden and also from Finland, that we are happy. They're getting the grants. They're being able to secure funding. At least it was 1 year of experience already. But this is a perspective of funding. We do have amazing facilities here. I'm able to collaborate. In Finland, I collaborate with Helsinki. I collaborate with Sweden. We have also collaboration in Gothenburg and Portugal, in Lisbon. I've been those places, and I just, to answer completely your question, I would need to also visit Canada and United States. I know the structure by reading the papers and seeing the colleagues and testimonials from social media, but I didn't see, but I know the productivity. And I think if you want to, there's funding here to apply. It's not as difficult or competitive that would be for me, for example, in the University of California or Harvard. I don't think I would be as competitive there as I would be here. So it's a window open, and and also a fertile ground. So if you want to give a boost in your career to eventually be more competitive afterwards.
Yeah, there's a question from the chat. Were you eligible for these grants because you are a European citizen, or would American citizen be eligible as well? As a question.
Were you eligible for these grants because you were an European citizen? You mean the grants from Finland or the UK?
You're an American citizen, can you apply for these grants? Or, like, for example, this grant that you applied, you got that because you are a European citizen?
No. There are very few grants that are restricted for European citizens, but I'm not even applying for those. There are some grants that you can only apply if you are in Europe, but you don't need to be a citizen, an European citizen. And in the UK, it's the same. For example, the Sir Henry Dale Wellcome Trust, apparently the restriction now is for European citizens, but I recall a researcher from the University of California who applied to this Wellcome Trust in the UK, and she awarded the grant, and then she mobilized her group to the UK. Yeah, so it's a matter mostly of being there, but not restricted by your citizenship.
And there are some from these grants like that you can apply, for example, from here, or you have to be like in Finland, or have to be in a European country?
It depends on the guidelines. For example, the Academy of Finland that I got, you need to be in Finland.
Okay.
But there are other fundings that you don't. Actually, they are open for people from abroad to apply in order to invite them to Finland and grow and invest in the country. So it's all about the guidelines.
Yeah, it's really
but it's possible.
For example, I never thought about Finland before. I knew because you're our friend, but it's like, it seems like a fair opportunity, because I said, even you think like, you think USA, you have a lot of opportunities, but the competition is higher than everywhere as well. So it's really good. Like, think like, okay, you have your other place that you can apply and you can do a good science. Yeah, I'm very happy to have you. I don't know if let's see if you have some more questions.
There's one hand here, Katrin.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for sharing, but it was very interesting.
No worries.
I do have a question. So I often hear that university they tell you if you teach at the university, they want you to learn the language, like Finnish or like Swedish in your case. Are you supposed to learn the language within 2 years? Because I often hear that.
I'm sorry, your voice is now breaking.
Oh, I'm sorry. So is
sorry,
university...
your voice broke, but I think I understood your...
Yes, so are you supposed
to...
Sorry.
Yes, no, not necessarily. If you want to teach in the bachelor courses, then you need to know at least Finnish in Finland. But if you're going to teach in the post-graduation, it's not mandatory. But you need to have the basics, at least the basics on Finnish language with a certificate, in order to become a professor. I would say like a permanent professor. So far I'm associate professor, and I can teach in English in different courses of the bachelor course or the post-graduation courses, but I can't coordinate a course yet, right? So it's totally possible to teach in English, and all the students, they all speak English, all of them, and very fluently. But only the professors, they need to have like basic title in English, in Finnish. And to become a citizen here, you need to have the basics in the language. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you speaking Finnish already?
Well, I'm married with a Finnish woman.
That's helpful.
She helps me. She's helping me. And when I have time, I study, but I don't speak to the degree of the basics to get the certificate. Is very difficult. It's very difficult. And we have some hands here. Marcin?
Yeah, just to comment maybe, because I am from Europe, my PI here did a postdoc actually in Berlin. When I started my bachelor study, almost nobody teaching English. Now teaching in English in every level in Poland in life sciences is something normal, that you have almost all of your classes in English.
Yes.
And I know that in many European countries, you don't need to know the language of this country. It's enough when you know the English. So, especially in Northern Europe, in Germany, it may be more difficult in France, in Italy, in Spain, but still in many countries, really there's no need to know the language of the country if you know English, and there's no such requirements as in Finland that you have to have this language certificate. If you know English, it's completely enough to teach at the all level of higher education in many European countries.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's the case here in Finland, at least. They already ask you for a language certificate when you apply for studies here. And when you get a job, usually the employer when in the interview evaluates your English and they respond to you. So this is sort of an evaluation also from the university when they are hiring staff members. But you do need the English. Yes, you do. And all the scientific discussions, even amongst the natives, I would say that I was working in my first group was only Finns. They were only Finns, and they were every time talking in English. It's kind of they need to. It's mandatory for internationalization of the institute, because that's what they want. They want to grow internationally, so they need to live as internationals.
Thank you, Marcin, for the participation. Let's see if there is...
Yeah, if I could comment once again, it may be also because some languages do not have even some scientific names, scientific nomenclature, they borrow it from English. From my personal perspective, the biggest challenge for me was writing either master thesis or PhD thesis in my native language. So it's much easier to write in English.
Yes. And I would say that sometimes the researchers here in Finland, they need to write ethical projects, ethic projects or proposals and forms in Finnish. And they need to draft the science in Finnish. And they say, I don't know how to do that. Because they're so accustomed.
I can do that in English. Yeah, makes sense.
In English, to read papers in English, in nature science, everything is English. And when they need to go for the native language, they don't know how to communicate. It's very funny. And so I would say if you guys, at least I know that Sweden is the same. They're neighbors. So for the Nordic countries, they are really developing in terms of science and research, health research, health sciences, it's a good choice for further endeavors. I know that you guys are in a great place. United States is amazing for research. I choose Europe, and if you want to challenge yourself in Europe territory, I think you wouldn't regret.
Let's see.
Could I comment once again? And sometimes when you see some offers from Eastern European countries, for example, postdoc salary for grants in Poland is about something like $1,700. So here you could think, okay, it's so little amount of money, but to live in some Eastern European countries is really enough. Maybe not in Poland today because we have horribly high inflation, much higher. The real inflation is much higher in US now, which is still really high. But in, for example, I don't know, Czech Republic, Slovakia, some Balkan countries, if you see that there are, let's say, salaries like $1,500-$1,700, it's enough more than enough sometimes to live there. So just to consider that in Eastern Europe, life is also, the salaries are much lower, but life is also much cheaper.
Yes.
If somebody who wants to go to this such exotic country, just to consider this.
Yes, I would say that the life quality, if you saw in my slides, when I looked into the places that are considered to be the happiest in the world, they are really happy because there is a real return in terms of safety, culture, investment. The taxes here in Finland, they are very high. But Felipe, you know my opinion about taxes as a Brazilian. I wouldn't pay taxes in Brazil. Of course I would, but I would be very resentful because I know that the tax is going to be used for other purposes, not going to return. But here you see the return. You do see it's unbelievable. I say that I'm happy paying taxes here. And I do see the difference, and no wonder it's considered to be one of the happiest places because you see the impact of the economy being applied without corruption, and you really feel the safety and the things are not too expensive. You can afford buying a house with 0.03% of interest, fixed interest. There is no interest for buying a house or having a mortgage. So. Of course, we would talk about a country or this kind of countries that are more developed, but they don't have a lot of people living here. It's easier to manage as well. But that's the moment that they are living now.
Yeah, I have a feeling like that the quality is way better for postdocs there than here. I mean, of course, compare like with South America is not fair. But yeah, that's I have this feeling because like the conditions like to afford like a house, you know, and they have kids and it's way worse here. I have this
A
feeling.
postdoc here can have a mortgage to get married and start paying down payment for houses at the same time of paying a car. A postdoc can do that, and it's still underpaid. If you are like a research development researcher, an RD researcher, you can go to industry and you will earn like way more. And they have like an initiative here in the Nordic countries, especially in Luxembourg, there's a lot, but in Sweden as well, and in Finland, they have a lot of startups in the pharmaceutical industry, pharmaceutical companies, they're startups, and they are hiring loads. So it's a possibility to go as well. But I also agree that you will have a break in your career, in your academics. It's difficult to come back later if you don't like, for example. Yeah.
Okay, guys. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for delay, but I think it was worth to wait. And Carlos, thank you again.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
it was very good, and like I am sure that like you help us like to think like some opportunities like that's not just here in USA.
Absolutely. And if you want to establish contact, and I'm more than happy to support.
Okay, thank you.